Tom, this week, the Equalities Minister, Bridget Phillipson, said that racism and sexism have become normalised in Britain. Is the media just reflecting wider issues in society?
I don't think racism or sexism is normalised in Britain, and I certainly don't think it's endemic within the media. Obviously, I know we want to broaden this discussion out beyond Jason Arday, and I'm more than happy to do that. That, of course, was the prompt for all of this. The media is often hauled over the coals, criticised when it gets things wrong, or, heaven forbid, when it lies. This is a quite unique situation, I think, in which the media is being hauled over the coals for getting things right and for telling the truth. I don't want to rake over all of the specific stories and allegations, but there was a story there in relation to plagiarism, in relation to academic fraud, in relation to wild claims about his life, which turned out, unfortunately, not to be true. And the way in which the media has been reflexively accused of racism for that, I think, is shameful and will end up chilling a free press going forward.
Iman, is there a difference between the way white people are treated in the media and black people are treated?
Yes, I would definitely say that it's very subtle, so it's almost imperceptible but unmistakable in terms of the pattern. When you look at the pattern and the kind of repeated targeting of individuals and the way that communication is deliberately and strategically conveying different things for different groups. So you can have, one scenario for white people, one scenario for black people, more or less the same, and it will literally have completely two different headlines. And that's that kind of inferential communication that we see, where it's just really subtle, kind of subtle ways of kind of expressing your bias or your prejudice, or kind of trying to ensure that people are left with a feeling. So I see that a lot when it pertains to black people.
Yeah,
specifically.
I mean, Alka, it's an interesting point, and I mean, I mentioned that Amnesty quote. So Professor Arday is not the first victim of our toxic, unregulated media culture, and unless there is a systematic legislative change, he won't be the last. I mean, it's pretty damning, isn't it?
I think it's outrageous, and I don't think it's true. I think racism is. I think you can see racism has become almost like a tool that some people use as if it were their personal thing to use among their repertoire to shut people up.
Who uses that tool?
We've seen that with Anne Cryer in 2002 with the grooming gangs. We've seen it with Sarah Campion. We've seen it when people like Diane Abbott and Naz Shah have accused them of being racism. And far from the press being able to go on a frenzy of any kind, they've actually been reined in. And even with Jason Arday, there's a very good case to be made that had the press, had the Times Higher Education journalist been allowed to pursue the case way back, that this may have come to light between Jason Arday, the Department of Education and the university much earlier, and it could have been dealt with a kind of respectable control.
So we're not talking about the specific case.
But the point is that race is outrageous, that people are using the claim of racism.
So we got that point. Iman, I just want to ask Wendy, because actually your face was a picture as Alka was speaking. You were frowning, you didn't look happy, you're smiling now. So tell us what's your response to that?
I think it would be accurate to say that there's a very strong racialised bias in the UK media. And people are becoming emboldened, partly because across the pond, Trump has allowed people to do what they want when it comes to racism, and now it's coming over here. If you just look online, if you look at, for example, local newspapers online, and if there's just a normal story about somebody, a perpetrator who committed a crime, the comments are just unbelievable. Wonder where that person is from, wonder what colour that person's skin's from, wonder why he got a visa.
Worse now.
So
people are becoming emboldened.
Equating online with the media, with broadsheets.
Well, I think a lot of the press now feels that because their fan base is acting that way, then they want to push that narrative. It sells.
OK, I mean, that's a really good point. Tom, do you, in the media, do they feel, the media as a whole, that they have to follow what social media is doing? Because social media, people will say all sorts of things that you perhaps wouldn't say in papers, but perhaps papers now are thinking, we need to kind of do that to attract that audience.
I mean, there's always a danger of, I suppose, audience capture, listening to the loudest voices on social media and thinking that reflects the country. But I think the kind of bottom feeders that you're going to find in a comment section or on the various threads on various social media platforms do not reflect where the country is at. And also don't think that it's fair to say that newspapers, certainly in their coverage of the Arday story, have been reflecting any kind of racialised bias. I think if Jason Arday, for instance, was a white academic, and if the long list of stories and claims were quite as fantastical, and if he was as prominent as Jason Arday was, his treatment would have been almost identical.
So, Tom, there
is
an investigation going on, so we're not going to get too much into the detail of that. But there is a wider point there, Iman. I mean, if you think about the media in terms of many of the good things it's done, I'm thinking of the Macpherson report into institutionalised racism in the police. That wouldn't have happened if the media hadn't really pushed hard on that story. The Windrush victims, I mean, that was because of journalists, digging and finding stories.
Yeah.
Fine, there may be elements of the media that are racist, if that's what you want to say, but surely you can't say the whole media is racist.
No, I think racism has always been situation dependent. It has always been situation dependent. And I think people forget about the fact that the media, in terms of the kind of ecosystem, it's a business. It is a business. They are literally governed by profit, governed by market orientated. Their whole aim is centred around trying to maximise as many views as possible. And obviously we already know that negativity bias, emotions, all of these things garner attraction and garner responses and comments, which equates to money. So ultimately, it's situation dependent. And when there is a political discourse that is centred around let's be pro-black, then you'll see every organisation and institution jumping at the chance. And when it is not, they will also flip quite quickly. It is all about situation dependency.
I want to get you to respond to that, but just add in, back in 2017, Prince Harry criticised what he called racial undertones. This is what Iman's talking about in the British press's treatment of Meghan Markle. And we saw many of the things where you see Meghan Markle, the way she's eating avocados, and then when Kate eats avocado, you see the difference in the way the media responds. Do you think there is a problem?
I think that, no, I don't. I think that what you will see in the press, the very wide press, is that there will be times when things are reported crassly, crudely, offensively. None of that gives any single person or group of people the right to dictate a national policy on what the media can and can't say, right? Because that is the issue.
You're not answering the question. The racial undertones.
No, I don't.
The way black people might be treated differently.
I think if we're let's just look, this was sparked off by the Arday case. I know you don't want to dwell on his particular circumstances, but what exactly can anyone just say what has been in the press that is so racist? I've heard him be called the DEI poster boy, right? But more importantly, the points that Iman was pointing to about the commercial imperatives, which exist in universities, it's quite ironic because both the academia and the press have a core moral public duty to pursue the truth. Now, if these second-level corruptions are entering in of commercialisation, that does not, the conclusion should not then be we then curb it further. It should be that we hold that we ought to value truth more.
But they're still
highly,
responding to
means
demand.
freedom.
But they're still responding to demand. It is.
I would say that publications believe that truth is subjective, and what Iman said about it being situation dependent, it's also. I agree with that. It's also publication dependent, and that is tied in with a commercial aspect.
Yes, and politics.
Yes, and another problem is that we don't have enough diverse voices in the media. The Reuters Institute in 2023 said that there are only 1.3 or 1.4% of journalists in the UK are black. There's a much higher proportionality of black people in the UK, but the number is very low. So one thing we've done at London Metropolitan University, where I work, is we've started the London Met Journalism Diversity Network, which is helping our students who might not have, our students who might be economically disadvantaged or minoritized or fitting a widening participation category. And they don't have the connections that are needed to get a fantastic work placement at the BBC or at ITN or at Mary Claire magazine. And we've been able to get those placements through just opening the door for them.
Okay, I mean, Tom, so diversity in newsrooms, we've all been in them, and my experience is they're not particularly diverse, but whatever we say about how objective we are human beings with subjective stories, and people write subjectively, however objective they're trying to be. We need diversity because we need different voices, whether it's gender or whether it's equality, sexuality, whatever. Is that being reflected in media?
I think if you want diversity, the primary thing you should care about is diversity of opinion. And I think there's one big problem with a lot of the discussion about representation is that there might be a kind of tick box exercise, you know, an attempt to bring more ethnic minorities through and whatever, but you don't necessarily still get a proper diversity of opinion within that. I mean, one of the things that's fascinating about the media that never really gets talked about is the one metric in which the media is actually going backwards in terms of its representation of the population as a whole is in terms of class. So you might be having people who are coming through who might be, you know, objectively ethnic minority, what have you, but they might have gone through private schools. They might not necessarily reflect the experience. People are individuals. They're not ciphers for their race. And just going back to this point about racial undertones and Harry and Meghan coverage or whatever, I am concerned that what we're witnessing here is a kind of trivialisation of the issue of racism. If we're comparing stories about avocados and acting as if that's a form of really extreme racial bias,
No,
I don't think that's...
covert.
I don't think that's...
And it's
trivial.
It's so covert, you need a magnifying glass.
It's so covert.
One second. It's so covert, you need a magnifying glass and a degree in critical
No, you
race
just need to
theory to
concentrate.
detect it. And this is a big problem, not least to go back to a point that Alka made, which I think is very important, is there's also a big issue in the media of the fear of accusations of racism, because it has been weaponised. It did lead people like Andrew Norfolk, the late, great Andrew Norfolk, to hold back on investigating something like the grooming gangs, one of the worst scandals ever to hit post-war Britain, because he was terrified that it would lead to accusations of racism. This is a huge problem. We're trivialising the issue of racism. We're allowing it to become a weapon, and we're allowing it to get in the way of reporting the truth wherever that leads us.
I think
there a
people are
danger-
really.
is
I
there a
think, can I
danger
just
of that?
say one quick thing? I think people are more concerned about being called racism than the actual racist act itself, and that's been an issue throughout this whole entire society. People are so petrified at being called racist, but yet we are not seeing that enthusiasm when we actually talk about racism.
Yeah.
That's what's so
So-
bizarre. It's nonsensical
so
when you really think about it.